Well, good evening. Good evening to my podcast, Real Talk with LaQuita Taylor. I'm glad you all are able to join me this evening. I have a special guest. I thank God for her taking out the time this evening. This is my special guest that I talked about where I think everyone will be moved about her testimony. Every 5 seconds, someone is in domestic violence. Not even women, but men as well. We're really in a bad time. And so I think her information, I think where God has brought her from and how she is such an encourager and very informative about information dealing with domestic violence. And this evening, my guest is evangelist. I just call her my goddaughter, evangelist Crystal Ryan. Amen. I'm so glad we finally were able to come, and I'm so excited about you being on because you truly have a testimony. Just to listen to what you have been through and how God has brought you out. You have books. She didn't get a chance to bring her books this time, but she'll have information where you all can reach her and talk to her. So just want to say just a few things about Crystal before we get started. Excuse me. Crystal Ryan is the mother of two children and two grandsons. She's been an advocate for domestic violence for some years. From the experience, a true survivor, what God can do when you trust in Him. Her ministry theme is Beyond Blessed. She was featured in 5280 and the cover story for Urban Spectrum and many others that she has been a part of from her testimony. So again, I think we're about ready to start and want to say hello to everyone out there. And okay, a beautiful woman of God. So we thank God for her. Well, what I want to say to start out with you is can you share a little bit about your background and what led you to seek help with domestic violence?
Well, so I was an only child,
Mm-hmm.
and my abuser knew that I didn't have family or anyone to turn to help me.
Mm-hmm.
We got married at a very young age.
Okay.
I graduated high school at 17. I was married at 16,
Okay.
had my first child at 19.
Boy.
So he knew that he was my world. He knew that he was everything. I was a nomad by the age of 15. My mother left me when I was 9 months old. So grandma died 2 weeks before my 15th birthday, and I became a nomad. Um, I decided to seek help for domestic violence because I knew that that's not what I wanted. I knew that I was better than that. But, when you grow up and the people who are supposed to nurture you, those who are supposed to care for
Mm-hmm.
you, if you grow up molested, raped, abused, you think that's love. So it wasn't, it wasn't strange to me when my husband started doing that because that was my childhood. I was first raped and molested at the age of 8. And when you become an adult, you still carry some of that stuff with you, but you stay where you're comfortable. And I was comfortable until I got uncomfortable. And my children are my saving grace. They are the reason why I decided to say enough.
Mm. Boy, that's something, yeah, sweet. Identifying signs. Um, how did you first recognize that you were in an abusive situation? Were there specific incidents that made you realize this?
Early on, I knew I was. I knew early on that a man isn't supposed to put his hands on you. I knew that a woman's not supposed to put her hands on a man. But I ignored the signs because I had an image. I had an image that I wanted to keep up. And I was like, I didn't want my girlfriends to think that I was being abused, or I didn't even want anybody to know my business. Because when we grow up, what do they say? What happens in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
So even my own children, I told you, don't talk about what happened. Don't tell anybody. Mommy's okay.
Mm.
So there were signs there. At first, I thought it was cute because he was the man. He had the muscles. He was 6'3". He was everything you wanted in a man. He is your protector.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was cute at first. I thought he was being nice. He was protecting me. He loved me. So that's why he was doing the things. It was my fault. So I never wanted to blame him. It was always victim blaming. Crystal, what did you do? Crystal, what did you say? Because there again, it goes back to the childhood. So we had to identify the root. The root of my problem was I was so content with what happened in my childhood that you don't talk about this. You're going to stay with this man because he's your provider, he's your protector, he gives you anything you want. So at all costs, you're going to stay here. So all those signs that were there, I ignore them. The checking your cell phone. We shared a cell phone. We shared a passcode. Showing up at my job, little things like that you thought, okay, why is he here at the beginning of your shift and at the end of your shift? Why is he going through the dirty clothes, checking on your underwear?
Girl, shut up.
Come on, I'm just being
I know,
honest.
but oh my gosh.
So there were signs there that I chose to ignore because one, if I left my husband, where was I going to go?
Yeah.
Who was going to help me with those 2 children? So I'd rather stay in my situation than take my children away from their homes.
Because, even in listening to stories, the opposite people always want to find the worst. She could have left. Why did she stay and continue to take the abuse when she just could have gotten away? But they don't understand. I tell people, until you've been in the situation, you don't know what you will do.
That's one thing I always tell people. Never ask someone, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you? Or you should have. Or you could, can I come to your house? No, because you don't want me to bring my drama to your house. You don't want my already crazy husband coming to your house with that drama. So you're not going to invite my children and I to come stay with you. So don't ask somebody why haven't they left yet? Or why don't you just leave? It's more to it than just packing up and leaving.
Boy. The emotional impact. What emotional or psychological effects did the abuse have on you personally?
It's like death. We never get over the death of losing someone. We learn how to live with it. To this point, it'll be 17 years, I'm sorry, on October 22nd, and I still have emotional scars. When I first left my husband, I didn't even know how to order my own food from a menu. I didn't know who Crystal was. So I say that to say 16, 17 years later, I still carry emotional scars. And that's even after going through therapy. See, people look for my physical scars. I still have some of those, but majority of those have healed. But those emotional scars, they will last with me forever. When I look in the mirror, sometimes I don't see who you see, or a man that'll say, "Oh, you're so beautiful." I don't see that. When I look in the mirror, just today, I see a woman that is battered. I see a woman that is overweight. I see a woman that has so much baggage that she's unlovable. Let's just be honest, and that's today's. Now, tomorrow, I may look in the mirror and be like, "Hey, girl, you look so good. Your hair's right." That's tomorrow. But today, when I wake up and I'm like, "Oh man, who loves me? Nobody loves me," or "I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough for anyone." I've been single now for 16 years, and it's hard because I'm woman enough to say I have self-sabotaged some relationships because I see what I think is a red flag is actually someone trying to get to know me. But if I spend the night over your house and I wake up screaming in terror and tremors, are you man enough to cry with me through that or hold me through that? So emotionally, I carry a lot of emotional, and I'll say baggage or emotional scars that will be with me for a lifetime. I know how to mask them. And I know when I need to get extra therapy that week because I've had a rough week. And it carries over to my children. Because my children, they feel that sometimes, "Hey, mommy, my daughter's my best friend. That's my bestie book." And sometimes, she'll just come up and say, "Mommy, you're so pretty." And I'll have to remember to say, "Thank you," instead of, "Well, this doesn't fit right, or I don't feel good," because I have to be an example for her. Or my son will say, "Mommy, I love you." And for the longest time, I didn't think I was lovable. So Instead of saying why or what do you want, I've learned to say thank you and I love you back. So it doesn't just affect me; it carries over into my children too. So,
But after, of going through your abuse and everything, when your baby, your daughter says, "Mama, you're so pretty," she means that, right? But you're like, "Am I really pretty?" She says that, but I don't know.
it's the low self-esteem because, it plays over and over what your abuser told you you were not. After being with someone for a long time and then you become disgusting.
And you were so young too, Boy, but you are beautiful. Good morning, gorgeous. All right.
That's my thing.
Get up in the morning singing, okay. Hear all over your head. You be like, good morning, gorgeous.
Okay.
Regardless. Okay. Represent, girl. All right. So, seeking help. Can you talk about the process of reaching out for help or support? What resources did you find most helpful?
So first, I went to my church. I went to my pastor. I went to the mother of the church. I went to several people in the church because that's my family.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in the church is kind of like hush hush. So behind the microphone of singing and on the praise team every Sunday, behind the children's ministry, they just sound crystal. But they didn't know the hell and high water I was going here. They didn't know that I had learned to put makeup on to hide those scars. So my first resource was go to my pastor because he's going to help me. He's going to hear my story. He's going to know, he's going to believe me. My pastor told me to stay. And I was like, okay, I'll stay. And one night my husband kicked me in the face and with his shoe on. First of all, I'm a germaphobe. You put your dirty shoe in my face. That's not the first time, but you kicked me in my face this time. And I called the pastor. First, I called the pastor's mom and I said, I can't take this anymore. This man just kicked me in my face. And she said, well, call the pastor. And I said, okay. So I called pastor. I said, this is what's happening. He was drunk and in the bed, but I was downstairs and I was whispering, this is what just happened. Can you all help me and the kids get away? He told me to stay. I said, okay. That was on a Saturday. That Sunday, I called Safe House Denver. I called the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They connected me with Safe House Denver because I knew this is where I wanted to come. I didn't know anyone here.
Where were you living at this time?
In Houston. I was living in Houston and I reached out, but that was my third time reaching out to Safe House Denver. And if the average person, it takes 7 times. It's average. 7 times we'll leave and we'll come back,
Yeah.
So this was my third time reaching out to them. And the lady told me, she said, if you don't come this time, we'll have to give your bed away. And I was like, okay. Didn't have any money, didn't know where I was going to go, didn't know the first thing about domestic violence, and didn't know where to go except for the one place I thought, my church. Well, they want me to stay. I'm not doing that. So what's next? So, and I went online and they had the checklist of everything. If check this. If you check 1, you're in an abusive relationship. I checked everything on that box. I checked. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to get out here. I didn't have any family to turn to. I have family, but I don't have family. If just because we're blood doesn't mean we're family. And I've always been known to be the strength. I've always been independent. Since being that nomad at 15, I had to go get it. I had to make it happen. So I never relied on anyone. And after my mom being at my home one time when my ex-husband and I were fighting and I told her I want to go home, she said, I have to ask my husband. Never heard back from her. My dad was at our house one time. My husband beat the crap out of me. My father was downstairs. So who am I going to reach out to? If the people were here in my home, saw this happening, if they did not protect me then, what are they going to do for me now? So that's why I stayed in my situation so long, because I didn't know where to look. Domestic violence wasn't talked about. I didn't even know there was a domestic violence awareness month. So,
Mm. But I see, but there's something that I want you, because like I say, until you've been there, I've never been. I pray for everybody because I've never been beat. Never. Because I think growing up, the oldest, had 5 brothers, how I was with men back in, with people in high school. I just didn't play. I see my mother get abused.
I wasn't an easy win, though. I would fight back.
Yeah, but after a while, it's like, really? I mean, you the man and he big and everything. And I watched my mother get abused a lot. But my grandmother raised me. And my grandmother said, you will not let any man disrespect you. Now, I've been through some mental where it's been on. And he cussed me, it's on. It's really on. It's on and cracking. But my heart goes out to people because you don't know. You can get with somebody and think he's just as fine and romantic, and he's a stone fool. And that you don't know until you get in that situation. And it makes me so angry when people say, why didn't she go? And even men. And a woman whipping you, why aren't you gone? But until, like I say, that abuse, man, it's cold.
Yeah.
So I want you, it just shakes me up every time you tell me this. This is so deep. When for your birthday, how old were your children? And tell what happened.
So for my 29th birthday, I turned 29 and we were having my birthday party. And
Okay. Okay.
we were at Mr. Law's house. And we were drinking, we were having a good time. It's my birthday.
Okay.
And my husband goes, "You're too drunk. I need you to come downstairs. I need you to come to the car for a minute. I need you to come to the car and just get yourself together." And I'm like, "Okay." I see it Thursday, and we go downstairs, and he says, um, "I'm about to show you what I do, and this is gonna help you sober up." So for my 29th birthday, I got cocaine.
Mm.
That's the day I became a functioning coke addict. The hardest thing about that is that I lost my nursing license because cocaine became a pacifier. If I brought coke home, he would invite me. We had the time of our life. We party all night. We just have the time of our life. And I went to work and I had been up for 5 days. And I was in ICU and I was supposed to be feeding a patient. And I said, "Oh, I'm so tired." And I sat down in the chair. And when I woke up, the Houston police was there. And nobody at my job knew what was going on, but they knew that either on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I was going to call in. hmm But they didn't know why. I was a good nurse. I wasn't a magnificent nurse. I love my patient. But losing my nursing license took something from me because I was the first college graduate. I was proud because my grandmother, she was gone. But I'm like, I put myself through school. I had 2 children. And I was proud of my license because I was doing something that no one ever imagined I would do. And it one like my drug addiction took over. But and I just want to tell you, cocaine was my survival mechanism. Do coke to get high. I did cocaine to survive. And people were like, to survive? This is what I told the Nursing Board of Texas. I did cocaine to survive. Literally, for my life. And so, um, mm,
It's okay.
I can remember baggies being around, and I made up stories for my kids. I dropped a baggie on the floor. They had no residue. And I'm like, oh my God, those neighbors that were over here. I hid it from my children. My children did not go until they were adults. But like God, I may not be able to work as a health, but I'm still able to be at healthcare. I'm still able to be my own boss. I have my own company. I'm able to still do what I was called to do. And I was so angry at him. But God said, hold on. I got some good for you. Nobody can take from here or here. And what I have, oh, come on, they can't take that from me. It's just the fact that I worked so hard without any help to go through school. And then the man I love gave me something that turned my life upside down. I know people thought I had the worst sinuses because that was my excuse. I always had to have tissue in my hand. Everywhere I had tissue. I couldn't taste until I got here. And I had been in Colorado maybe 6 months. My sinuses were so destroyed from all the colon I had done. I couldn't taste. I couldn't smell. And so the first time that I was able to, I was like, oh my God, I can smell. But when I got off the bus here, I have not done coke since. I didn't need that. I never had to go to rehab. I never had to ask for any help because I didn't do it to get high. I didn't like how I felt or how I couldn't taste or anything like that. So once I got to Colorado after I escaped, that was a thing of the past. That was a part of something that I left behind that I never even thought about again. Some people aren't that lucky. Some people, it's not just cocaine. They lose their lives. I remember laying in the bed and we had been high and I didn't know what speedballing was. I would get high all day and then I want to go to sleep. So I would take a sleeping pill to make me go to sleep. And we were laying in bed one day and I said, oh my God, I'm about to die. My heart was racing. I could see my heart pumping so hard. And I looked at my husband. I said, I'm about to die. I don't want to die like this. He looked at me and he said, D, you messing up my high. I said, Lord, if you let me survive, I promise you I will. I survived. Here I am to tell my story. I've met so many women who didn't survive. I've been to a lot of funerals of women that OD because they were just trying to survive and they lost their lives because, you know, it was their time. But
Before we move on, because we're going to move forward, how did you, of everything that you had been through, loss of your job with your husband until you just knew, this is it. I'm getting away from this fool. I got to go. When did you finally say this is enough and how did you escape?
I said that it was enough. The night that he kicked me in my face, that was my enough. Um, and except I had called Safe House Denver 3 times and I had backed out, but I had made up in my mind. I said, this is it. And there it is. I love this because it's real talk. I had no money because he was, he took everything. He was the man. He was an engineer.
Okay.
So, I stole a credit card from one of my clients. I was working at an assisted living, and this patient, her initials were KR, my initials were KR. I used that credit card to buy 3 one-way tickets to Denver. And that Sunday, I remember cooking dinner, a big old Sunday dinner. I called one sister-in-law over and I said, I'm leaving. And I told her I was going to Virginia because I knew she wouldn't be able to hold it long.
Okay.
I knew I would intimidate her into telling her, I know she told you where she's going. So I told her I was going to Virginia. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell family member, anybody where I was coming. And we chose Denver because I had been online and I was just looking at researching jobs in Denver. And Allen Iverson, Allen and I grew up together. So my daughter she's been an Allen Iverson fan since she was little. So she said, I said, guys, if we can go anywhere in the world to get away, where would we go? And Adira was 9. And she said, well, let's go to Denver, Colorado, because it snows there. And Allen Iverson,
Okay.
plays for the Denver Nuggets. I said, go where? Denver, Colorado. Now, I hadn't shared with my kids or anything that we were going to leave. I hadn't told them where I was thinking or anything. So I said, this is God. And Safe House had that room waiting for us. So with the credit card that I had stolen, I bought 3 one-way tickets to Denver. I had $500 that I had squirreled away that fed us all the way here.
Yeah.
That fed us all the way here. I had my best friend come over. She had gone to church. I called her that day. I said, I'm not going to church today, but I'm leaving. She said, are you really? I said, I'm leaving. She said, okay. We had the kids had a jacket and my little one bag in the trunk of her car. I told the kids, you take one thing that you can't live without. You just get one thing. My daughter has it till today. She has a little Horton stuffed animal. She's 27. She still has that. My son grabbed a game. We put our backpacks on. We put it in her car. After I made dinner and all that, I looked at her, shook my head. I said, okay, guys, I'm going to Dairy Queen. I'm going to get ice cream. I'm going to get everybody ice cream. I heard him tell our son, go upstairs and take your bath. And so I was like, oh, no. I'm going to take them with me. We're all going to go get ice cream. I took everybody's order in the house.
He didn't pick up on anything.
I took everybody's order in the house. And then I had in my pocket, I had my keys. I took my keys out and I hung them up by the garage. We had 2 dogs, Wags and Yayo, a Chihuahua and a Dachshund.
Well,
And I looked at them knowing that we weren't coming back. I hung up my keys and I looked at the dogs. And I said, okay, we'll be back. Only one knew was my girlfriend and my sister-in-law, Shamar. In Houston, if you don't have a bus ticket, you can't go past the boarding line at Greyhound. They have an armed police officer, Houston police officer there. I said, my kids and I are running away. I'm leaving my husband. I'm afraid he's going to show up. And the whole time we were sitting, because, you got windows. So if anybody passed by, he would have been able to see us. The police officer said, don't worry. He's like, I'll keep my eye out. You're okay. Give me a description. Our bus didn't leave for about 3 hours. And I was looking around. I was like, oh, my God. Now, this is the last time I got high because I stole his stash. I had his coke in my pocket. And every time I turned around, I was running to the bathroom until it was all gone. But I was alert. I wanted to be up. So, I was wired. And so I didn't relax until we got on the bus. The kids were smiling. The kids were so happy. I still remember the look in my son's eyes. It was just like a relief. And so I'm up because until that door closes and we pull back, this man could still come on this bus and snatch me off. But he did. And when I heard the door close and the bus driver put the bus in reverse, I knew we were on our way to freedom. I knew. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. All I knew is that when I got here, I was supposed to call this number and Safe House Deborah was going to send a car for us. I just had faith. And coming through Colorado Springs, the next day there was a full-on blizzard. And we're coming from Houston. Short sleeve, flip-flops, And I looked at my kids and I was like, are you okay? Are you guys okay? And they were just smiling. God had seen you go through so much. They were so happy. And although now he didn't physically abuse our children, but the mental and the emotional, it stays with them until this day as well. And it kind of, it tears it puts a wedge between us because children don't want to have to choose between their parents, no matter what went on, you know. So I make sure I never say anything bad. I just, you guys remember. Well, if you don't, because some kids they block that out, just like we do. Choose to block out certain things you don't want to relive or you don't want to. And I understand that. And it's okay. That's still your father. I'm not going to take that away from you. That's still your father. If you all have a relationship, that's fine. We can't. But it was, yeah, it was just stepping out on that faith and knowing that this is what God wanted me and my life depended on it. Because if I had to say that, I would have OD'd. I would have been a statistic. There's no telling what my children would have gone through because I wasn't attentive. My only focus was being a good wife to the man who didn't respect or love me for who I was.
Girl, I just want to holler. You watch that. I always watch like a ID channel, and you see where those women are trying to escape, or Lifetime where they went through and they're terrified, and the man is beat them and doing things. So just example, the man, he had 3 children by his wife. They were estranged. He took the kids. They found them with this was this week. Their heads were in plastic. He murdered those 3 children to get back to his wife. And they still can't find him. They're trying to find him. This is in Colorado. So, and when I think about it, and just to hearing your testimony, you don't know what a person is going through behind closed doors. And sometimes we don't realize, even not only in abuse relationships, but sometimes God will have to burn you out of a situation for you to move. Sometimes it's not until, okay, the fire's here. I can't take the heat no more. And then next it's like, we going to Denver. So I thank God. I mean, and to see you and I know you and where you've been and just your testimony and your beauty, and you could not tell what you've been through. Some of this I just heard, and I'm just outdone. I just want where that man at. Where that man at? Okay, let me. Chrissy Dyer. Where that man at? Y'all see? Well, let's do it again. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Where that man at? Okay. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Oh, girl, I'm Lord living. I'm just emotionally I mean, goodness.
It's hard. And then they isolate you from everybody. So I will go to church and they think I'm at the altar crying just because I'm touched by the spirit. No, I'm crying because I need some, I'm crying because that's all I can do. I'm gonna get beat when I get home because I've been at the altar crying every Sunday because you don't tell people our business. So the church,
Yeah.
I love the Lord and I love God's people. But they were some of the worst during that time.
Support systems. Were there specific people or organizations that played a key role in your journey toward healing? How did they support you?
Once I got here,
Mm-hmm.
um, I never stopped going. So Safe House Denver, they gave us a place to stay.
Right.
That Tuesday, the counselor, I said my real words. I said, Miss Barbara, can you help me get back home? Because I'd rather be beat than stay in a shelter. Because I hadn't experienced anything like that before. So, in a shelter, there's maybe 100 women plus their kids. And at that time, they didn't have locks on the door. So I'd rather go back to my comfort of my own home and deal with whatever he's going to do than stay here. And she said, she's Hispanic. She may be 5'4", the sweetest lady. She said, yes, I can help you get home, but why don't you go to the gathering place for women? So we walked because we didn't know our way. They gave us the directions. So we walked there and it was a Tuesday. This is how I know the gathering place closes on early on Tuesdays whenever I refer anyone, because they came out and they were talking to me. And the resource lady said, well, we close at 1, so you're going to have to come back tomorrow before we can help you. I was so tired. I sat down And I started to cry. I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. The shelter we're staying in sent us here. And I don't have a coat. My children need. Miss Kathy took a scarf off her neck that she had knitted and she put it around my neck. Okay. And she said, sit right here. Bridget, for anyone knows, Bridget Johnson. Everybody knows Bridget Johnson.
That's my girl.
She had Bridget's closet over at the Gavin place. Bridget became my auntie at that moment. She was working there and she was working at Warren Village First Step. I didn't know what a first step was or a transitional housing. Bridget said, let me get you and these babies some clothes and some coats. She said, we're going to take care of you. You're going to be okay. And I said, no, I just want to go back home and they said, no, you're not going home. This is your home now. Bridget said, I'm going to get you into transitional housing. What is that? I was in the shelter for 5 days. Bridget didn't have a car, but she knew that bus line around Denver and knew people. We moved my stuff and the kids' stuff from Safe House Denver on the RTD, on the bus, all the way out to Federal, Warren Village First Step. They had, our room was like a conjoined hotel room there. Mm-hmm. So Jay had his own side, and Thera and I, we became roommates. I'm glad she's my little best friend. But we stayed there, and this is how God worked. In my mind, I'm always in survival mode because that's how I had to be. So I couldn't let my children see me sweat because I asked dear, I was, are you okay? And I was holding her. She said, I'm fine, Mommy, but I'm just afraid that you're going to go back. Oh my goodness. I said, okay, God, it's you and me. Let's do this. So went from Safe House Denver to Warren Village First Step. Within a week, I had a job. I had my first job. And
what was that?
It was at Seniors Resource Center. I was their activities director. Okay. So, because now see, God had set me up. Not only did I have my nursing license, I had my degree. I also have my degree as a recreational therapist, which is
look at God.
activities director for seniors. So I had that degree. And I'm a CNA forever. So I had my first job. They gave me that position as their activities director. I ran that program. Within a month, I was in the news for dancing with one of the residents, and just, I didn't stop going. So then I was like, God was like, okay, now you're in survival mode. You can get out of fight or flight. Now I need you to survive, not just for you, but for the next woman, so you can be an example. So in transitional housing, I became Mama K to the women. I came in, I was like, we need to clean this place up.
Okay.
There was young girls that were having babies that didn't have family support. A couple of them, even to today, I'm still in contact with them. One young lady had her baby. They stayed in my room for the 6 weeks that she was rehabbing because she didn't have favor. So I became a mother figure. Then I was like, okay, Crystal, you're beyond blessed because you're still alive. You're beyond blessed because you are on your way. You're beyond blessed because you have a job. So everything became beyond blessed. I'm beyond blessed. I didn't look where I had come from. I looked forward to where I was going. And so the Gathering Place, at that time, every year they awarded a woman a Section 8 voucher.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what Section 8 was, but I was working. Okay. I was working, and we had moved into our first apartment, and Miss Johnson was her name. She called, she said, you only have 48 hours before this voucher expires. I said, I don't need this voucher. I work and I'm taking care of my children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be on welfare, is what I said. Okay. She said, sweetheart, come to the office. I need to talk to you. She explained to me what Section 8 was and how that was going to help me get my children into a home and help me to be able to rebuild my life and get on my feet without having to pay my whole paycheck for rent. And by that time, it was 24 hours before my voucher expired. We went to Montbello, the last house I looked at. I said, gosh, I hope this is it. No background check, no security deposit, nothing. The landlord said, you can have this house for you and your children. He stayed there for 15 years. even after the Section 8 had expired, they still work with
What God? Oh my God.
paying even one of the highest amounts because I was working. I was making really good money.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't care if they don't pay but $10. I'm going to take that $10
And make it work.
and make it work. So I was able, so these are resources that people don't know about or that they're ashamed of because I was ashamed. So there were resources out there. I just didn't know about them, didn't know what I was in store for me that could help me. But now I do. So it's like I'm that voice for people that are in my situation. I'm like, did you go and apply for this? Well, they're not giving it. Don't give up. Don't give up. Get on a waiting list. So there was several different organizations that helped me along the way. And then I couldn't afford the divorce. I I for one hid with my children because if I had filed for my divorce, he would have I would have had to give him visitation rights to my children because they're his children as well.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed hid until my children were both of age. I stayed married to him until they were adults. So we don't have anything, you know. And Rose Andom Center, I had to. I love them as well because they helped me get the therapy I needed.
Mm-hmm.
They helped me file for my divorce. They helped me pay for my divorce. They made sure that I was okay. I was in the address confidentiality program so that I couldn't be found. That was all through the Rose Andom Center. And the way that I thank them, I started on the there's a victims resource that we call, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. I want to help other victims. I want to help survivors, and so we started the Domestic Violence Awareness Walk through Rose Andom Center. I was one of the survivors. I was actually the brains behind that. Like, I want to bring awareness out loud and proud. I want to let them know that survivors are trying to make a difference. Survivors are not all afraid. No, so we're called the Voices Committee. And the Voices Committee, we got that done. And now the walk happens every year. And I get to, share my testimony with them also and thank them for the resources that they helped me with.
Girl, this has been interesting. We need to have a part 2.
Oh.
I know they're gonna start looking at me crazy in a minute.
Yes.
But you're so engaging, and you're just listening, and this is like really a lot of this is just new to me, but I'm gonna have to move on. But right here, I do want to say this. How has your life changed since leaving the abusive situation? What are your hopes and aspirations for the future?
My life has never been greater. It has, I have learned now that what happened to me was not my fault. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you made them abuse you or you deserved it because victim blaming, we begin to blame ourselves. So now I am confident in who I am. I know whose I am.
Come on.
And I live my life with purpose. But I live my life now as a living, walking testimony for the next woman because I want them to know that there is life after domestic violence. That's my tagline. There is life after domestic violence. So what does that look like? It looks like business owner. It looks like homeowner. It looks like woman of God. It looks like peace. It looks like you. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. I never thought I would write a book. I'm a best-selling author. I've written 4 books. I've written 2 devotionals. So there's things that I wanted to do while I was married, but I was told I was too dumb or I wasn't smart enough or it could never happen. So my life has changed just by helping the next woman, just by putting myself out there, like by doing
Real talk.
real talk. I put myself out there and I don't sugarcoat because see, some people tell a piece of the story. What God told me is he's like, never give any part of your story for people to fill in the blanks.
Come on.
I didn't give you this testimony for you to pick and choose what you want to tell people. You'll tell it all. And that's what I'm doing. That's how my life has changed.
Well, I thank God. There's just one other question I'm going to end. I'm going to have to have you back in October for domestic violence. That is the month of breast cancer, number 1. I'm getting ready for my Fighting Together to Save Lives. But I'm going to have you back again so we can just cover some more because it's not enough of talking about domestic violence. It's cold with it. Last thing, advice for others. This is very important. What advice would you give to someone who may be currently experiencing domestic violence? We got about 2 minutes. 2 seconds. Wait, I know.
First of all, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Or my email, kryanhhtc@gmail.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. And it's okay to leave with nothing. The material stuff can be replaced. That stuff will come. I left with nothing. It's okay because your life can't be replaced, but that material stuff is. So don't hesitate to leave. Reach out to someone. If you're not comfortable leaving, if you don't know how, reach out to me. I don't care what state you're in. I have resources in all 50 states, and I will help walk you through. I will talk with you. I will cry with you. I will help you get through this. Pray, but don't stay. Pray. I will pray with you. But don't stay just because you feel like there is no hope. Your life is worth your life is worth you living, and it's worth you leaving. And if you have children, they depend on us. They depend on us. We are all that they have. So my advice to you is when you're ready, you reach out, you make that call, you make that walk, and I'll be waiting, and so will others.
Amen. Well, oh my goodness, this has been such a powerful program. I thank you so much. Thank you, my baby. She adopted me. I'm her godbaby child. I probably got about 20 godchildren, but this is the oldest. But you've been wonderful. Thank you. I know it encouraged a lot of people. And again, October, let's plan to have something where we can just bring it really, really real about domestic violence. You have been a blessing. You taught me some things I didn't even know. Because even in the funeral home, some of those people have been beat to death or been tormented when I hear the stories. But now it made me more of an understanding what people really go through. So again, my baby, thank you. For those that stay tuned in with Real Talk with Laquita Taylor, again, we thank you. Be blessed. And I'm just really just deep right now. But you all be blessed. Good night.